Okay, today we're going to take a look at removing the wrist pin clip. Something we never do is reuse those, so you always want to make sure you get a brand new one in the wrapper. And guys, what do we say about these? That they are different for every engine,
Yep.
right? So sometimes they are used between similar models, but don't ever guess. So when they're new, they're nice and flat, and you don't have a raised or twisted portion, so that's pretty important. You're going to see that when I pry this out of here, I'm going to distort it and I'm going to kind of mess it up. So some of the tools that we'll commonly use are found in your everyday toolkit here. I love these 4-piece pick sets. They work pretty handy. The only challenge is these tips are pretty small, and you got to be looking at your tool before and after. If I break off a piece of this tool, where did it go?
Inside the piston.
Or possibly inside the motor if you're still working on motor that's in the chassis. So you kind of always want to be, use some caution to check your tools out and see what you're going to use. You might have some larger pistons or some real stubborn ones where you're going to use your typical larger or full size. And then another thing that I like to do, and this one's pretty important here, is get yourself a nice selection of small screwdrivers. And on this here, I honestly wouldn't necessarily try to have Snap-on or brand name unless you have an unlimited budget. Get your cheap screwdrivers, because then what you could do is you could take and grind these down to get them to fit, really nice and tight in your different size reliefs. So do you see how this one's too wide?
Yeah.
And if I tried to go in here, I might dig around or something. So this one isn't ideal. If I look at one here that's been ground down, I could fit in here really nice. And can you see how I'm actually moving the clip already?
Yeah.
The first recommendation I want to give you is you always got to know what you're getting into here. So this relief here, I could see that it's free and that it moves around, so that's nice. That tells me that it's not seized. The other thing I want to make sure and do is I don't want to slip and hit the ring or hit the side of the piston. Is that going to be a problem?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we made the kind of joke or nickname that these are a Jesus clip, because when they go flying, what do you say?
Oh, Jesus.
Go Jesus! Okay, so everybody's got safety glasses on. I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to put some support on this. And notice what I'm doing with my thumb. I'm covering the part here so that it doesn't go flying across the room. Okay, so do you see how I've got underneath that clip?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm basically forcing it out of the groove here. Now this one went easy. This thing's been together and apart, numerous times here, so it's coming in and out easier. Can you tell laying flat here that that's bent up a little bit? So maybe in the video now.
It's got a little bit of a twist.
Okay, that's not good. We don't want that, because what that's going to do is under the extreme load of this going up and down, that's going to side load in that piston pin bore, and then it's going to come flying out of there. So we have one of these on each side of the piston. Okay, that's going to secure it in place. So now what we would do is we would go ahead and just take and push our pin out. We got to make sure not drag across the bore of the rod here. This is almost no effort. This one does not require any special tools. We have other ones out there that I'm going to show you guys that do require a special tool to separate this. It's called a piston pin puller. While I have this apart here, like I said, I go ahead and I always replace both of them. Now some people say, well, I didn't take the other one out, I'll just leave it alone. Do you really want to put your reputation on the fact that the other one is in there secured properly?
Nope.
When I put this back together, I'm going to put a new one in and not have to worry about it. We'll get into some more detail about this in the engine lab, but there's something I want you to notice about this piston. Do you see how we have these cutouts here on the top of it?
Yep.
Okay, do you see how they're off-center?
Yep.
Okay, so they have to match those valves inside the cylinder head engine. So can you see how the piston then is actually directional? If I were to put it in the bore this way and the pistons are on this side, what's going to happen the first time I turn it over?
The valves are going to bottom out.
Valves are going to hit the piston, they're going to bend. Okay, so to help us in aiding and putting the scare, manufacturers will have stamped arrows or markings. What Honda did on this motor is they have this ZL8 that you could see here. And if you look at the connecting rod, you'll see a matching ZL8. And then they also go to an extent in the service manual to tell you that the slinger, for the oil slinger we talked about yesterday, should be off and to the right as you're facing it. So there's a bunch of different clues. Now I saw in the new engine on that training module you guys are going to do that they've taken inside the engine and wrote flywheel side. And then on the rod they did something like flywheel to tell you that if this is where the side is going to go up and face the magneto side is what we were calling it, that this would face up, and you would see the crankshaft coming through the case where you'd bolt your flywheel on, and that tells you what direction it should face. But you guys will see that in the manual. Why don't I go ahead here, and there's another thing we always must do when we assemble these, is you always want to use an assembly lube or engine oil. I've got this container here by Klotz. I love this assembly lube. It's really good. It's a little bit thicker, and what's nice about assembly lube is it'll stay tacky. So if you have an engine that you might not run for a month or two or whatnot, instead of the engine all running to the bottom of the crankcase, it will actually retain itself where you put it. But honestly, guys, inside of here, it's just a nice applicator. So we've used regular engine oil because we're putting this engine together with the intent of turning it over and using it right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a really light coat of oil on my parts. Look, I didn't hardly put anything on there, did I? Okay, I'm just going to smear that around there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it on the side that I took the clip out. I'm going to go ahead here and get some oil on the rod part as well. Just get it kind of looped around there. See if this works for the video here. I'm just going to line these up, and I'm going to slide them into place like so. Okay, so I'm fully bottomed out, or I'm seated in there. Now, I didn't take the other one out, so the pin is able to go against the other clip, and it works really nice. If you had taken both of them out, what I like to do is with the piston in my hand, where I can work on it real convenient, put one clip in. We'll get into some detail, too, to think about. What if, if you were working on, let me try and do a little drawing here. Let's say I'm working on a 4-cylinder, like this. Okay, I would be very intentional where I would put my clips. I would put this clip in and this clip, because then I could push the pin in from the other side. Does that make sense? Yeah. Really think it through. So then I would put a clip here, and I would put a clip here to make it easier to have a nice side to work on as I'm doing it. So which side you put in does have an effect. Back to our small engine here, guys, it doesn't matter because we assemble this whole 1-cylinder outside of the engine, not even on the crankshaft or anything as well. We're going to put the piston in first. So now we got to take a look at, we've got this clip here, and I'm going to do a little bit more drawing. And so what you'll notice about our piston is that we have that relief where we pried on it, right? Yeah. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have this across that gap to where it's open, okay? Because how would we get it out next time? Okay, it'd be a super pain in the butt. So typically what you're going to see written in service manuals is that you should have the open end. Sometimes they'll say at the 6 o'clock or the 12 o'clock position. They don't really care which. Okay, that would be an installation side. Now, Honda does not care so much about this because they always know you're going to replace it. So we're never trying to quote-unquote save the wrist pin clip. Is everybody clear on that? Yep. Okay, now what you're going to see from installation, and what you guys will find out when you do it in the lab today, is that typically, and these smaller ones go pretty easy, so it's not such a big deal. Typically, if I start with my open end here, by the time I snap it into place, it lands like this. I don't want to land right here and then have to take some type of tool like this and try and drag it into place. Excuse me. What am I going to do to that precision bore in here? I'm going to scratch. I don't want to do that. It's going to make it harder to work on the future, and it's a possibility that if I create a bird edge in here, okay, do you see what a machined edge that is in there? Mm-hmm. If I create a burr on there, it's a possibility the snap ring may pop out. Okay? Not what we want. So let me go ahead and install this. Like I said, watch how I'm going to do this here. I'm getting one side started. Okay, so I'm going to put my finger across this, and then I'm going to take my straight blade screwdriver, and I'm just going to basically walk it around and into place. Now this one here, I got to switch back to my right one. I need to relieve it a little bit as I'm walking it in. Okay, now I can tell right now I'm at an oh Jesus moment. It wants to go flying. Okay, now from where I'm at, my problem is I'm catching on the hole. Do you see that right there? See the end of the clip? So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to reset myself a little bit further around. I'm going to walk it over a little bit further. And as I do that, okay, notice how I never took my thumb off, did I?
No.
Okay, now watch here. I think I got it in place. Okay, I never took my thumb off. Now the big thing I want to look at though is I'm not happy with my installation, guys. I'll tell you why. Look at where my open edge is. I am very, very close to that edge. Now without digging into it, I'm going to see if I could take and walk this with no effort. Okay, if I have to give it any effort. Do you see how I did no effort?
Yeah.
That's okay. I didn't scratch it. I wasn't doing anything. I'm putting all my force on the clip. But do you see how I'm all the way past the relief now?
Right.
That would be a proper installation with a new clip. Okay guys, here's a tip for you too. I want to take this other clip out, and you can see how I'm completely open and exposed inside of here. And what I don't want to happen is I don't want this clip, as I'm trying to take it out, I don't want it to walk in deeper. Any ideas? How about I just put the pin in? And then I'm going to take a rag, just an everyday rag here, and I'm going to kind of stuff this. Watch what I'm going to do here. I don't want to press the pin. I just want to stop it from the ability to go so deep. Do you get what I'm saying? And then you guys could do the same thing. I'm going to protect this here. Popped it out that easy. It was just that one's really in weak shape that it came out that easy. Now, if I didn't put the pin in to support it, like I said, it might walk its way down the surface here of the wrist pin bearing. The other thing I want you guys to think about too is when you go to install it, is it a nice idea to put the pin in without the rod to support it so it doesn't go too deep?
Yes.
Yep. Because our whole thing that we don't want to do, we do not want to crush this to where we're going to deform it to where it can't spring back to being a circle. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now I'm going to ruin this one. If I tried to take that and just bend that back open, I physically can. Okay, I have the strength, I have the ability with tools to do this, but down on the bottom here, what did I create?
Weak point.
A weak spot, right? Okay. Now you'll see bad wrist pin clips quite often. We'll have a crimp or a point right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're unsure, here's the reality of it. It doesn't matter. Always put a new one in. But if you feel like you stressed the heck out of one putting it in because it tried to twist through the hole and you didn't have the wrist pin in and it went too deep, if you feel like you stressed it, pull it out and put a new one in. Don't take the chance. That's my advice, okay?